So, death of a unicorn. It's a very unique idea, but is it good, is it bad, or is it just okay? Well, let's talk about it. But as always, before we get started, if you're new here, my name is Aaron and I talk all things movies and TV, but really mostly movies. So if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. It would be greatly appreciated on my end. And if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that like button while you're at it as well. I would also greatly appreciate that. And if you've already seen the movie, of course, leave your thoughts down below in the comments. But without further ado, let's talk about Death of a Unicorn. So in this, we follow a father-daughter duo played by Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd, and while they're on their way to a business deal, they hit and kill a unicorn with their car, which of course leads to a lot of bad things happening. Jumping right into the good, and the first thing I have here is just this entire cast. Now, one of the main reasons why I was interested in seeing this movie was because of this cast. We of course had both Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd, who played that father-daughter duo, and that relationship was very much supposed to be the heart of the film, and sometimes that worked for me and other times it didn't, but I'll get to that a little bit later in the video. But anyways, I think Jenna Ortega did a solid job as the lead in this film. She has stated before that she loves running and screaming in horror movies, and that's exactly what she did in this one. Paul Rudd was his typical self, but I think the person that kind of stole the show in this was Poulter. He definitely played more of the comedic relief in this movie, and he was pretty funny throughout this entire thing. He played the spoiled, dumb, rich kid that was kind of annoying, but he also seemed right at home in that and did a really good job in that role. There was also Leoni, who played his mom, and Richard E. Grant, who played his dad, and they were the rich, greedy couple that just wanted to make money off of these unicorns. And then on top of that, we also had Anthony Carrigan, who played their butler, and as this movie goes on, he kind of secretly becomes one of my favorite characters in the entire movie. There was just so many little moments with him where he said like this little one-liner or was doing something weird and funny in the background, or just his reaction to some of the things that this rich family was doing that was really entertaining and really funny. But anyways, this cast was great and they were really the thing that made this movie entertaining for me. Next up for the good is the humor. Now, as I just said, Poulter definitely was a big part of the comedic relief in this thing, and I would say he was probably the funniest character for me, but really overall, this was just a genuinely funny movie throughout the entire thing. There was a lot of witty and physical humor in this thing, but where I got most of my laughs in this movie was some of these over-the-top, absolutely gruesome kills that we got in this thing. If you came to this movie just wanting to see unicorns absolutely destroy humans in the worst way possible, then it's safe to say that this movie is probably for you, because some of these kills were just outrageous and absolutely hilarious in my opinion. But there was really no drop-off in this humor. It was pretty constant all the way through, and that was one of the elements of this film that just made this thing fun to watch. And the final thing I have for the positives are their themes of eat the rich and greed in this movie. Now, yes, they were a little on the nose with their themes throughout this entire thing, but I think I just love how they went about showing us those themes. There was no reading between the lines. These themes were right up in your face, and usually that doesn't necessarily work, but because this movie does have a bit of an unserious, fun tone, it worked for me in this instance. And the way they went about showing us that theme of eat the rich was literally just having them get obliterated by unicorns, and you just can't tell me that's not fun to watch if you're a fan of movies. Now, yes, they didn't get super deep with these themes, and it's definitely not something you're going to be thinking about after you watch this movie, but the way they went about showing us those themes and executing those themes throughout this entire movie, I thought was really entertaining and really cool. Moving on to the so-so, and the only thing I have here is just the way this movie balanced its humor elements and its horror elements together. Now, this film is categorized as a horror comedy, but I feel like we got a lot more of those comedic elements than we did the horror elements. This movie was very much the tale of two halves. In the first half of this thing, this was a comedy, but in the second half, there was a major shift in its tone, and it was just a full-blown horror movie. It still did remain goofy and fun during that second half of the movie, But considering that all of the horror elements were mainly on the back end of this film, it just felt like when this thing was all said and done, it felt like we got way more of those comedic elements that were pretty much consistent throughout this entire movie than we did the horror elements, because those really only popped up in the second half slash third act of this film. Don't get me wrong, the horror elements were still good and I very much enjoyed them when we got them. I just wish we got a little bit more of it. This movie was very much comedic elements here, horror right here, and I wish it looked a little more like this. Not necessarily taking away comedy, just adding a little bit more horror. And finally, getting into the bad, and the first thing I have here is that father-daughter relationship between Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd. Now, it seemed like they wanted to make this relationship the heart of the movie to give this thing a little bit of emotional weight, but I just feel like they didn't explore that relationship enough throughout the movie to really get me invested in it and to get me to care about it. In the beginning, they really set it up to potentially play a big role in the story, but then they don't really revisit it at all or try to explore that relationship throughout this movie. So by the time we get to the end of this thing and they try to have this tender emotional moment between the two, it just didn't really work for me, because outside of the beginning, they didn't really focus or really explore that relationship at all. And I think that relationship could have worked as the heart of this movie and gave this thing some emotional weight like it seemed like they wanted it to, but since they really didn't explore and focus on that relationship outside of the beginning of the movie, it just kind of fell flat for me at the end of the day. And the final thing I have for the bad is that there were some mystical elements in this dealing with the unicorns and the unicorn lore, and that played a big part in Jenna Ortega's character throughout this thing, and they explored that, but they didn't really explain it all that well. And given that this not only played a role in Jenna Ortega's character, but that father-daughter relationship as well, it just made a couple of elements in this film feel a little bit half-baked by the time we got to the end. So at the end of the day, I just wish we got a little bit more from the mystical side of the film and they were able to explain kind of what it meant to the overall plot, because if you've seen the movie, then you know there's that moment with Jenna Ortega in the unicorn at the beginning of the film, and then there's another moment with Paul Rudd that kind of serves as this full circle moment between the two, but they never really explained what happened in that moment and what that all was. And if you've seen the movie, again, you know exactly which two moments I'm talking about, so I just wish they would have explained stuff like that a little bit more. But overall, this is still a fun movie. It's got a great cast, some solid humor, and some absurd kills that are definitely going to make you laugh. It does some good things, but I also think it doesn't quite stick the landing on a couple of other things, so for me, it's just okay. Those are my thoughts on Death of a Unicorn. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments, and as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.